Yo, we are back, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Off Season Brown and Orange Weekly. I am your co-host Clarence Wilson, and with me, as always, is my man, that dude, the guy, James Elfish. James, shake it, man.
Thanks for another great intro. It's end of February. Last night we're in Ohio. Last night went to sleep, had the window open a little bit. Woke up in the morning. I was fine. I wasn't cold. It was crazy. 60s in Ohio in February. With the spring training being on, seeing the spring training highlights and stuff right now. It's hard to dive back into football a little bit after the Super Bowl being over now, but you know how it is. It's the off season. It's Northeast Ohio. There's still Browns football to talk about, so we're glad to have everybody join us tonight. So, how
Yeah,
you doing? Are you ready for
I'm
this?
good. I was it was cool this morning, like you said, it was 60 degrees out, and then picked my kids up from school, and then by 4 p.m. I saw snow flurries.
Yep.
So welcome to this wild, wild weather in February. And then I think tomorrow it's supposed to be in like the 20s or the 30s or something like that. So is what it
Crazy
is.
times in Ohio.
Right, right. Let's get into it, man. Got a little bit of Browns news. No, so it's that off season. We're like you said, we're late February. We're looking for these small morsels of Browns news that come out. Um, that might give an idea of what the Browns might be looking to do going forward as far as the draft, free agency, and just overall how next season is going to flow. Well, let's jump into I guess one of the bigger news stories of the day: the board restructure. Um, they are going to I guess the restructure cleared up a little over 11 million in cap space for them to be able to use, which is nice. um, I do want to have the online resident Twitter cap expert Jack Duffin on at some point to find out how this all works, because it seems like they've done all these restructures, and here in 3 years, 4 years, we're gonna have a team of like five guys because we can kick the can down the road so far, and we're gonna have all these dudes making big money in year 4 or 5 of their deal. So, but I guess what's your kind of thoughts on the restructure that they did? And from what I'm reading, it might not be the last one that they try and do that with.
Yeah, and I really hope that's the case. The conversations have already been going on about the Nick Chubb contract. Will he restructure? But it's nice to be under with the cap going up, what, 30 million, and now
Mm-hmm.
there's restructure, and then there's more. Kind of where I'm at, Clarence, with this is what I need for out of our franchise, out of our football team, out of our front office. Is I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think about the offseason the Rams had before their Super Bowl win, and how it was kind of all in, let's go for it, and let's see what we can do, because they really felt that they could go for it and win the Super Bowl. So I'm kind of like that right now with the Browns, right? Where last year coming into the training camp, everybody's excited. We all expected to have a successful season, which we did. We none of us seen the path that we took to get there. Um, but I think from a free agency standpoint, I really hope that we're all in and really can make some more improvements to this team. A lot of people are targeting wide receivers. I don't blame them, because from the draft standpoint, we haven't been that successful at all. None of these guys have really turned out and separated, as we talked about during the season. We kept waiting for guys to separate themselves, and Flacco came in, and it really helped elevate Cooper's game, Joku's game. He spread the ball around, so our guy, the backup tight end, Akins, getting a pass a game. But I don't know that we're going to have that balanced pass attack as far as distributing the ball to our different receivers. So in my mind, we need to try to get at least another number two receiver. And I'm still going to keep saying that Amari's a number two, because by the end of the season, he was dinged up. I think we were very blessed to have him have the season that he did, that magnificent game he had in Houston. I think Clarence, you would agree that a wide receiver is a target area for free agency. Any other positions that you can think of besides wide receiver that you would like to see us improve on?
Not. I guess we got to see what happens with Za'Darius. See what's going on with the defensive line. But wide receiver. I mean, I've been asking for a big, fast wide receiver pretty much since '99. One that's consistent and that gives us more than one season, because we've seen the one season flash in the pans with the Braylon Edwards, obviously, with Josh Gordon. But I've been looking for that guy that we can bring in to grow with the entire offense. So I think wide receivers got to be it. I'm not super impressed with some of the names, I guess, I've been reading. One of the names I've seen a lot is Gabe Davis. I'll just put it this way. I've had Gabe Davis in fantasy for 2 years in a row, and he's feast or famine. Like, he's either going to get you 4 for like 130, or he's going to get you 2 for like 12 yards. So I'm not sure how he would fit in, but come whether it be draft or trade or free agency, that's got to be one of the number one spots. But we also know that this is AB we're talking here, and I thought for sure they were going to draft Pickens. Instead, they trade back, take another DB. So with Martin Emerson, which great move. I still kind of would have liked to see Pickens here, but it is what it is. But this freed up money, though, I'm hoping that's kind of where they use that on, is probably at wide receiver, as opposed to, like you said, taking a shot at the draft, because we've had very little success. Well, we just say it honestly, we've had no success in the draft trying to pick up wide receivers.
And it's about development. Do I want to overspend in free agency on a wide receiver? Not necessarily. I'd rather be in the get a good deal type mode, that somebody that come in and produce above the level that they performed the year before and get kind of a bargain that's got a little bit of, been in the league maybe 5 years, something like that. Just because of the lack of the confidence we have as Browns fans in the organization and the coaching staff of developing wide receivers. That's just my biggest concern. It's going to probably be best player available in the second round for our pick, but we all know what we need. We need guys that can separate. I know Flacco helped elevate a lot of guys' games, right? We saw a lot of yak from Njoku going from looking good to great. Same with Amari, getting Elijah Moore something out of him, at least from that chemistry they had for that little bit of time they were in with the Jets together. But we got to start developing our own wide receivers. We got to get something. What I would like to do, Clarence, is take a look at Kansas City's wide receiver group and see where they were drafted, how many guys are homegrown, and then look how they produced in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. I'd really be curious on that, because we know with Njoku that we have a tight end that can play all-pro level, made his Pro Bowl this year. Is he Travis Kelce? Maybe just a hair underneath, right? Wouldn't you say, just because of Travis being more proven and more established? But we think the skill set's there for Njoku, especially the man who went through burns this year. Physical burns to his body and his face, and was able to even come in and suit up during that time was so impressive. And I'm so glad for him that he turned the corner this season. But I don't know. What about Jack Conklin? You know what I mean? Do you think that he's going to come back and be our starting right tackle?
Honestly, I'm not sure who else they would honestly be able to bring in. I mean, they've got DeJuan behind him, obviously, but I almost feel like the Browns have so much invested in that offensive line that there's not really a whole lot of other places that they can go, quite honestly. Derek, shout out. We're out here trying. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Derek, thank you very much for watching. Bring a friend.
Yes. I feel like there's not they're going to bring in some ancillary pieces on the offensive line, but I kind of feel like they're going to go with what they have. Again, just because we spent a lot of money. They have spent a lot of money on that offensive line. Like I said, I just kind of feel like we're going to lean towards wide receiver. I think that there are a few guys I do kind of like at that spot at wide receiver in free agency. I don't think any of the guys maybe draft worthy are going to be there at 2 that could, really make a difference with this team.
I mean, we won't know until we get there, I guess.
Yeah.
The front office has made some pretty good, draft picks outside of just the when we think about the wide receivers that we've drafted, Clarence, how many guys have went on to other teams and excelled? And they just haven't, right? I can't think of any one player that where we were the ones holding him back. We're the ones that didn't develop him correctly. But yet he went on to succeed and founded a different system where he really took over. And
No, since '99. Since '99, nobody. There's not been. I'm not sure, honestly, in my lifetime, there's been no Browns wide receiver who went somewhere else and completely exploded. I'm trying to think, but I mean, going back to Webstar and those guys. Like, I can't think of any Browns wide receiver who went somewhere else and exploded, I guess.
Webster did well, if you remember right, when he joined Warren Moon with the Oilers.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what his stats were, but remember that run and shoot offense.
Mm-hmm.
Had some nice, had a nice at least couple years there with Ernest Gibbons and Curtis Duncan and Haywood Jeffries.
Haywood.
That was a nice wide receiver group that went and blew that game up in Buffalo. So, yeah, it was a great classic game. Houston Oilers. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I agree with you. You mentioned the defensive line. That's something that's obviously important because that changed the complete dynamic of our defense this year. Being able to control the line of scrimmage, which is so AFC North, but it's also so NFL winning football, right?
Derek chimes in. Taylor Gabriel had a decent career after leaving Cleveland. I guess decent, or for the right price, give him Curtis Samuel. I'm not anti-Samuel, but if we're gonna go free agency, there's one guy in mind that I really, really like, and that'd be Ridley. I wanted him here a couple of years ago, Calvin Ridley. Again, he's still on the, I guess, younger side at 29. Speed, bigger, a little bit of a bigger guy. We did see that T. Higgins did get franchised by the Bengals, so everyone's pipe dream of him leaving there not happening. And trust me, if they trade him, they're not going to trade him to the Browns.
Nope.
So I think we can pretty much log out any chance of bringing him in. But yeah, that's.
You were talking about Ridley, and I remember seeing his name on the list. To me, you have the Alabama connection of him and Amari, and he almost reminds me just a younger version of Amari. We don't obviously know the guys; they could be two completely different people, but just kind of like that build, that size, and kind of what they can do on the football field. It feels very similar, but so I'd be curious to see. And I did mention, hey, give me another 2. I think Ridley would be that other 2, and let's see what happens because I don't think you or I believe that a healthy Deshaun Watson comes back and all of a sudden Elijah Moore's game is going to be lifted. Do you think that what Flacco did for Moore that Watson can come back and do that?
No, but I also think that Moore had, a game here, a game there, but I also think they were trying to use him, like we said several times during the season, they're trying to use him like he's Tyreek Hill, and he's not Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So he's nowhere near as fast, shifty, or anything like that. So I'm not really sure. He's a nice piece to have, but again, I just don't see the Browns don't have that game breaking wide receiver. Amari, like you said, he's on that cusp of, he's a two, teetering on the one. But like I said, I've been just looking for that big fast guy pretty much since we returned, and we've seen it in little small doses, but if nothing consistent, over like a 5-year span of seeing, the Browns have a top tier wide receiver, a top tier running game, and a top tier quarterback. So, we're hoping that Watson is that top tier quarterback. Obviously, Chubb has been our guy, and he comes back healthy, at some point early in the season. And obviously, we have Coop, who, yeah, without him, the Browns' passing game seems to be lacking a little bit. But I think they got to add somebody. They got to add that big fast guy. Got to.
Well, and I think what we're not being fair with is Cedric Tillman. Our last drafted wide receiver that's got some decent size to him. Played well in spots his rookie season. Can he have a breakthrough season next year? There's a lot to be said with what his abilities are and where they drafted him, and what he could potentially bring. And when we talk about the Browns developing wide receivers, I think in general it's not just about the Browns, but it's about the player themselves. How are they also developing themselves? What kind of work are they putting in off the field between workouts and studying? How what's that chemistry like with their quarterback? We know last year Deshaun and the group were, where was that, Puerto Rico, or where'd they go, where they were doing workouts on the beach and all that?
Yeah.
Where it was, but so they made that effort to help build chemistry, work out together, not just on the field, but off the field too. I know the Browns this week announced the return to Greenbrier in West Virginia that they're going to do for the first 2 weeks prior to starting training camp in Berea. So that's something that seemed like a big positive last year as far as team building goes, both on and off the field. So I'm glad about that return, because that chemistry is so important. And I think we saw this year, Clarence, in the locker room, on the field, on the sidelines. We saw that one of the tightest group of Browns players, and that's right out of Joel Bitonio's mouth, since he's been here. And how important that culture and chemistry is, that
Sure.
has been lacking for so long, for all the stories that Mary Kay and Tony Grossi and them were reporting. Just imagine the ones that weren't out there in the past. So it was nice and refreshing to hear those positive reports coming out of Berea, even just throughout the week. How we've changed as a culture, and that's why we were able to compete and do well in our AFC North.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick, got a couple comments. Joey Schneider. Shout out Joey Schneider,
What's up, Joey?
our guy. Appreciate the love. And then, yeah, that's what we were just kind of talking about. Like he's asking, how much cap do we think AB can clear, and what position? We think it's wide receiver, and we're kind of the cap question is crazy, because, like I said, I feel like they're just going to keep kicking this down the road, and then, as we said, 3 years from now, it's going to be a team of like 7 dudes and a bunch of league minimum players, because we're going to be paying these guys for kicking their contracts down the road.
Yeah, we don't have no Canton or Cleveland Charge to draw from. I mean, we have our squad. We don't have another full team we can draw from to just add players.
Yeah.
Maybe the UFL is going to change that.
Derek chimes in. He says if they're paying Watson what they are, I think he needs to elevate his receivers to be their best. And I 100% agree. And that can lead us right into our another topic. We did hear that from Stefanski that him and Dorsey are going to go out to California and go check on Watson, just see how he's doing. From what I understand, it's more of like a personal visit, I'm sure, just for them to just see his mental state and everything. Um, and then obviously they're going to talk about the offense. And this is something I'm going to ask you. This is a question I think I posed before. Like, how much more are they going to try and change this offense after last season? They supposedly did a revamp of the offense that gave Watson input on what the things that they do. How much more are they going to change it? And then are we going to be stuck in another pattern of, well, Watson's going to come back, he's going to learn this new offense. How many games is it going to take? So I get what's kind of your thoughts on them, I guess, retooling or revamping the offense for the second off season in a row?
I would say it's going to be significant. If not, they wouldn't have made the changes that they did. With Van Pelt and then the tight ends coach. You're bringing in a new offensive line coach. But I know what you're saying though. The offensive philosophy. My biggest question is: can Deshaun play under center? Can he do some of the play action plays that we saw out of Flacco? That he's an elite play action quarterback. Now, did he throw to the wrong team sometimes? Yes, he did. But I think as Browns fans, we all know what we saw, and it looks so good that the man sold how many damn T-shirts in our area, and there's probably still people trying to get their Flacco jerseys. So, that visit, yes, it's a check in to see where he's at from the reports that I'd heard coming out of the NFL scouting combine with Andrew Berry's press conference and Stefanski's that everything's on pace for him to. He's not behind in his rehab at all, is what I had heard. So that's a good thing. But like going back to Derek's question, elite quarterbacks do elevate their receivers. Aaron Rodgers, made how many receivers? I mean, Devontae Adams was solid, but you could still see his frustrations playing with the Raiders now, and how Aaron made his receivers better. Look what Mahomes is doing with all his speedy, short receivers in Kansas City. So, I remember there was
Brady as well.
What's that?
Brady as well. I mean, outside of Randy Moss, that he made a bunch of guys that weren't really stars and won Super Bowls with them.
Yeah, and Wes Welker was doing all that work down in Miami for nothing as a returner and a receiver, and comes to New England, and where his efforts and everything was shining through. So, yeah, can Deshaun do that? Yes, there's some responsibility on the receivers too. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, to me, honestly, I got Deshaun fatigue. I can't wait to not talk about him for a little bit, because we all know what we want out of him. And the one thing that we haven't talked about with him is that the reason why he got the contract that he did, that I haven't heard us even talk about, at least since you and I have been doing the show, is he got paid what he got paid in order to come play in Cleveland. Because if I recall right, there was an offer, but I believe he kind of was kicking it to the side, correct? He was still looking at other teams. I think Atlanta was one of them. And it wasn't, because I remember when we got the
Carolina.
Was it Carolina?
Yeah, Atlanta and Carolina. We were out, remember? There was a report that said, all right, he kicked us to the curb.
Yeah, so I thought for sure we weren't even going to get him. So when that news broke that we signed him, and we all know that guaranteed money is what talked, right? It had to be. Nothing else changed with the organization other than bringing him in. Him and his agent worked on the guaranteed money, made him the highest paid player and highest paid quarterback. So I think we had to overpay for Jimmy and the organization at the time. What they wanted in Deshaun to come in here was they wanted a quarterback that they knew that could play at a level higher than what Baker Mayfield was doing after that last injury banged up season that he had. They had to do it, I think, too, because of what they saw Joe Burrow was doing in Cincinnati. They knew in order to compete in this AFC North, they had to step their game up. And right now, we just haven't had the return on it, for health reasons and for the suspension. And we're all, I think, pretty frustrated with we want some consistency. I think that's the most important thing that we're looking for is just consistency out of him next season. But when I say consistency, it's not game manager consistency. We need to see some games where he's got us talking. Like we can't wait, Clarence, to get on right after the game and do a quick show and talk about, can you believe what you just saw in that game and how he led us back like he did in Baltimore, or how he played out of his mind and we won by 21 points on the road against an NFC playoff team. Those are the things that we're going to be looking for next season, because as we talked a little bit and touched on, that schedule next season, it's going to be something else.
Brutal.
So we better not only be good, but we better be deep, because we're going to be playing some tough opponents all season long.
Yeah, I agree. It has been frustrating, suspension season, comeback for the last 5 games or whatever it was. And at that point, it seemed like the Browns were just running a training camp for him to kind of get his feet wet because he hadn't played in so long. Then last year it was a lot of ups and downs, and you finally have that signature moment, against Baltimore where they come back and win the game, and then everybody's on cloud 9. And I just remember that Monday when the news came out that he was done for the year, and I'm like, you've got to be shitting me right now. Just one of those. So we just keep getting these small glimpses of what he is, and in my eyes, like he got to play 15 games this year. He has to play 15 games this year. If he gets hurt again and plays, 8 games, something like that, 10 games, whatever it may be, the offense and the team as a whole, we're never going to know how good they are if he's not on the field. Period. So they've invested all this capital in him, and again, I'm hoping to see him succeed on the field, but the old saying, best ability is availability. So I need to see 15 games, and I'll give him a grace period of a couple games for him to get things right. But I'm not sure that a lot of other people are going to do it after we saw what Flacco did coming off the couch and leading this team to the playoffs. So it's as it was last year, so it goes this year. This team is going to go where Watson takes us unless we get lucky again. And I don't know who we could pull off the couch this year, because I'm imagining Flacco is going to get a job somewhere that's maybe where he can play a little bit more. Maybe we can bring him back as a backup, but I don't know who we can pull off the couch this year. It's going to be rough.
Let me ask you a question. You just said Deshaun Watson playing 15 games this year. When you say that, or this next season, the end of fall, this coming season, does that sound like just a high number right now based on what we've been dealing with? Does it sound just it's like it's such a stretch? And based on the quarterbacks that were injured last year, how many across the league?
You know what? Because he had a suspension season and got hurt last year, yeah, it does sound like a stretch, but that's what you should expect at this point. We can't pay for a certain production that we already knew we were going to lose him for 11 games at the beginning. We knew that. We were all prepared for that. But last year we kind of thought, this is all right. You know what? He plays the full season. We see what we got. Let's make it happen. Let's go. And again, like I said, right after his best game of the best half of the season, I would say, against Baltimore, against our hated rivals, I was feeling real good. But then he gets hurt again. So I feel like at this point, year 3 of this deal, while 15 games does seem like a stretch, only because of, like you said, what we have dealt with so far, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Well, and so that was kind of I kind of set you up on that one, so I apologize. So for me, 15 games is not enough based on where we want to go because we're not even if we win the division, you're still looking at divisional game, AFC championship, and the Super Bowl. So there's three more games and the biggest games of the year that would be on our plate asking him to be healthy for and perform at a high enough level to win a Super Bowl. Now that even sounds even more crazy, right?
Oh yeah, when you talk, yeah. See, I'm talking regular season. If he gets me 15 in the regular
Right.
season, yeah. But because I mean, I expected, like you said, we saw a lot of quarterback injuries last year, and backup quarterback was never more valued. So than it was last year, and we were a huge beneficiary of finding a backup quarterback after kind of tooling through with DTR and PJ. So yeah, man, I need 15. I need 15. Four more unless we are the one seed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You know,
Yeah. I don't know that again, we talked that schedule. If we're the one seed this year with that schedule, I'm thinking we're gonna win the damn Super Bowl.
no,
We're
you're
gonna win
right.
the Super Bowl.
But just thinking for the one seed, obviously we're the AFC North champs. We're hosting, minimum one playoff game. Wow, Cleveland just. If you think last year was electric, you
Hmm.
know, this coming season, to me, I'm all in. This is all in. This is load this roster however you have to do and be the LA Rams like they did in their off season going into their Super Bowl winning year. I
Well,
really
they've traded a lot of their picks, and we don't have that luxury. And I don't think AB this because this is the last season, I believe, right, of
right.
us not having a first rounder. And I got this feeling AB ain't going to be giving up too many ones unless it's going forward. I would say unless there's just a can't miss trade or free or basically a can't miss trade.
Well, you remember seeing the Andrew Berry picture saying, with between him and Sasha Brown getting rid of all these first round picks, saying "fuck them picks," right? So, I think you're right on that. I mean, they may be a little more careful, but you know what? Honestly, we just want one before we die, right?
That's
So
it.
I I don't care. I want this team to improve on what they did last year. You know why? Because the Bengals are going to be better. Joe Burrow being back. Pittsburgh's going to be pissed off, even though they did make the playoffs, did not perform well. A shitty Pittsburgh team still made the damn playoffs. So
Hmm.
another another rough, tough year in the AFC North. And I sure as shit don't want to go back in that basement again. We
No,
lived in that basement, and I do not want to be back there whatsoever.
no, and that's what scares me. That's between that schedule. I mean, between that schedule and another Watson injury, we'd find our asses
Right.
right back there. Because again, the chances of us finding another Flacco to come off the couch, or you know what, maybe DTR has, maybe he's taking the next step in his development. But I mean, last year, he made a few touch throws, but everything he threw was a rocket. It seemed like
Right.
so. So I'm it's I'm kind of with you. Like I'm almost at that point where like this year it's big because again we're gonna have to do some more restructures after next year. We're gonna start losing guys because we can't pay them here shortly. So
Right.
yeah,
And then
man. I'm
the top guys aren't getting any younger.
no.
I
Joey
popped that
chimes
up
in.
for Joey, mentioned about Jalen Polk from Washington in the second round. To be honest with you, I didn't give much credibility to the Pac 12 because their defenses usually suck. So whatever happens during the regular season, I don't really watch too much what goes on. I know Caleb Williams might be going number one overall, But
Mm,
you and I could throw for 250 in the freaking Pac-12. My gosh.
mm, this is
Um,
true.
and that's what's disbanding. And a lot of schools are leaving. But anyways, yeah, Jalen Polk. Hell, you could throw Mike Polk Jr. at a wide receiver for all I care, as long as they can perform.
Al Bundy from Polk High. I mean, at this
Hell
point,
yeah.
um, Joey chimes in. Cincy will be good, not great. I tend to agree. Pittsburgh was lucky, but you know what? Pittsburgh, it's not even luck anymore. They do this shit every year.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter who they have under center. And I was begging for them to go ahead and fire Mike Tomlin. Like, please do. They I Pittsburgh. It's the culture, and again, I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I hate the Steelers, but they don't really come out, and they might lack talent, but very rarely does a Steeler team come out and just look totally inept and unprepared.
Because
So
they're physical all the time.
always.
And I can remember a few Pittsburgh teams where you could run the football on, or if you go back to the Kelly Holcomb playoff game where we were throwing all over them, and then decided
Don't remind me.
in the fourth quarter. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. As much as I hate the Steelers, and the Steeler fans drive me freaking crazy, with all their crazy ass mustaches and everything else. And that's just the women. I ain't even talking about the men. But anyways, the Steelers I do respect as an organization what the Rooneys have done there, and the stability that they provide, and they're, I mean, honestly, over the decades we could look back, and I'm not gonna bullshit. There's jealousy involved with that.
Oh
I
yeah.
want I want that stability, and thankfully right now that Stefanski has righted the ship, got second coach of the year, and as much as you and I will, pick them apart throughout the year with some of the play calling, we've had a hell of a lot worse, right? And he's got the players buying in, and that is important that you have the locker room.
Yeah.
So we're definitely moving in the right direction. The biggest question in the offseason is how do we capitalize on how this last season ended, and how can we improve on that? Because how it is, even week to week in the NFL, things can change. So will we have some momentum? I think we'll have that hunger. I think we'll have that off-season hunger of getting to the playoffs, and not getting that victory after the season that we had. But let's see.
Yeah.
Prove it mode, big time, and it's definitely starts at the quarterback position. As far as has that culture changed to where it can go season to season now.
Yes.
It's been able to go week to week.
Joey, you know what we did? What we watched Pickett. You know what? To be honest with you, I'd say since '99, the Browns have had the equivalent of a Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph / everybody / Trubisky at quarterback for pretty much the return, most of the return up until about 2018. So, and that's where we look at the Steelers and say, and a Mike Tomlin, and be like, all right, well, Mike Tomlin is winning with Kenny Pickett and defense, whereas we watched 20 years of the Browns basically having a Kenny Pickett type of quarterback and winning 4 games.
Yeah. No, I mean, trust me. We watched. I saw enough Steeler football this year that the quarterback play. Obviously, people pissed off. Matt Canada getting fired mid-season, and I forget what the year was, but it was like the first time they had fired a coach in the middle of the season since like the 40s or something like that.
Yeah.
Same year.
James, at week 2, when I was in Pittsburgh, I'm never going back to that shithole for a football game of my life. That was the Chubb getting hurt game, and just nothing was. The city is nice, but my football experience there was god awful. But the fans in my section were chanting "Fire Matt Canada," and I had never seen no shit like that before in my life. Like, I'm like, the coordinator, like there's a chance to fire the coordinator. Like, I get, people talk about like we want to fire Joe Woods and everything. I understand all that, but I'd never seen a chant break out in the stadium to fire a coordinator, and that's what was going on.
You mean in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, in Pittsburgh.
I've never was in the stadium back then, but do you remember when the Browns had Mark Trestman
Oh
as
yeah.
their offensive coordinator?
Oh
Like I
yeah.
remember a lot of people being pissed off at Trestman uh, at that time. Now, do I remember chants in the stadium? No, but
Yeah.
if there was one, it might have been with his name.
I was thinking
In
either
Yankee
him.
Stadium.
Yep, I agree. Either him or Woods at some point a couple of years ago. But let's get into two more quick topics before we get out of here. Um, Andrew Berry is along with I believe six other teams is talking about moving back to trade deadline. We know AB loves his trades. What are kind of your thoughts on that? Let me get your thoughts first. What do you feel like about the NFL moving back to trade
Definitely
deadline? Because they already
disagree.
moved it back once already, right? It got moved back what
I
2 years ago?
think it's week 8 to the Tuesday of week 8 because of Monday Night Football of that week. Um, no, if you go 2 weeks, go into week 10, sure, because you've already added a week to the schedule, and with the talk of potentially having another week come in, y- just imagine. To me, it's how fantasy football. You set up fantasy football leagues before, right? So
Unfortunately,
I always
yes.
I know the trade deadline would typically be set with the NFL, like when I was on Yahoo, but I would always push it back as far as I possibly could because of injuries. So if people wanted to make trades, so I know it's fantasy football versus reality, but still, I personally I like having it later on in the season, so you at least have a chance to better your team later in the season, not halfway
Agreed.
through.
Agreed. Um, and I kind of like it because the NFL has like the most exciting trade deadline in all of sports to me is the NBA. This year was a little bit quieter, but I mean honestly, the only reason I ever joined Twitter was to be able to follow uh, Shams and Woj for on NBA trade deadline day because that's the quickest spot you're going to find it is on Twitter. It's going to be on Twitter before TV and anything else, and that's super exciting to me. As far as the NFL, it seems like they're trying to kind of, you know, make it into more of a bigger deal because in recent times up really until like what the last couple of years like you might see a trade here or there but there's nothing ground shaking or anything that happens and it feels like the NFL is trying to kind of model that their trade deadline possibly after the NBA and give these teams hopefully they give these teams a couple extra weeks like you said that they can play with and be able to make some moves. I'm fine with it honestly. It, the NFL is a different game, so making the trade, trading guys at the trade deadline might, depending on who they are, obviously, might not have the same impact as the NBA. But you start seeing some stars or some name brand players get moved around because they move this back. It can only help the NFL.
Yeah, player activity. The more I think that it's better for the league. It just for people getting excited about player movement. I mean, my gosh, baseball, the amount of movement that happens with the probably the strongest players union in professional sports, being the MLB players union. Anything that draws more attention to activity and that adds, like I said, add a couple more weeks to it to where there's possibility of change. It is harder for certain players to um, learn a playbook, trying to just jump in. Where when you get on a basketball court, it's a little bit easier. There's
Yeah,
still don't get me wrong, there's still transition. You think about LeBron's first year in Miami, yeah, they got to the finals, but there was still some kinks throughout the regular season trying to get everybody to work together cohesively. So the NFL, is harder. Then you take a Joe Flacco, and he's like the exception, right?
yeah, exactly.
He's also won a Super Bowl MVP, longtime veteran. So I think it's easier on the veteran player maybe than the younger player potentially.
Absolutely. Um, and then the last thing we'll jump on to as we come up on our time was the I didn't watch this whole thing. I just saw the Club Shay Shay Manziel. I saw some snippets. I'm not going to give that kid too much of my time, but I thought it was kind of interesting that he said something to the effect of Hoyer was the one who kind of sabotaged him or helped in sabotaging him. It's a load of shit. I'm sorry. Brian Hoyer had this team at 7-4, and yeah, it wasn't pretty. But yeah, Browns were at 7-4. He gets yanked, and the Browns finish 7-9 because they play Johnny. But I'm tired of hearing this dude yap. Honestly, screwed over the Browns for years. Didn't give a shit about the franchise, the organization. Has badmouthed the organization. But for him to come out and say something to the effect of, Hoyer was one of the main guys. Like, I remember what Brett Favre said after the Packers drafted Aaron Rodgers. He said, it's not my job to get the kid ready to play.
Right.
And that's it. It wasn't Hoyer's job to get Johnny ready to play. It's Johnny's job to get his ass ready to play. And he clearly didn't do any of that.
He totally failed as a professional and as a person, going through the alcohol and whatever else the hell he was doing. He was his own worst enemy. He shouldn't be blaming anybody during that time period. He should be owning it all. But if he wanted Brian Hoyer, like Brian mentioned in his response back about that, hey, I get an opportunity to be starting quarterback for my hometown team. Why would I be basically, okay, here, you ready? Okay, take over the starting. And then Brian said it was more the organization that was pushing Johnny into that, even though he wasn't ready. And don't give me that stuff about Brian Hoyer, not being a professional. If not, he wouldn't have been welcomed back to New England about seems like 10 times.
Exactly.
Going back and being a solid backup and a solid professional to help that offense. So, Johnny Manziel has talk about exhausting conversation about him. I do hope the best for him here.
Sure.
Coach football, get your life right, keep your life right. I did watch what was that on? Was that on Netflix?
Oh, the special? Yeah, I haven't watched that either.
Yeah, I watched it. I think at one point he was having a beer or something like that during the conversation. Do I think he's changed some? Yeah, but to me, he's still going to be, just based on his personality alone, he's still going to be somewhat of a mild prick.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. That's him. That has nothing to do with damn football. That's him being him. I'm not saying it's right, but to me, next topic.
Yep, fair. Well, we're about at our time. James, is there anything else you want to tell these people?
One thing I want to touch on, and I'm going to touch on the Guardians of the CLE podcast. Something I'm looking to do is incorporate some high school baseball and high school softball into that pod. So stay tuned to that as we look to really support our young athletes here in Northeast Ohio. But Browns fans, wanted to let you know too. Last night I was up at the auto show. And I'll get more into it when I record for the Guardians podcast. Albert Bell and Bayerga were up there signing some autographs, so that was a neat time. But I wanted to point out that the auto show is still going on through the weekend, and tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8, it's going to be Njoku and DeJuan Jones are going to be up there at the Toyota display at the Cleveland Auto Show at the IX Center. Anybody looking to get tickets, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been going for years, and this is the first time I've went since COVID. So it was great to get up there again. But I will tell you, I've never paid to get in that building. What you do, anybody that's interested, any year that you're interested in going to the auto show, there's a lot of celebrity autographs, our local athletes, Browns, Indians, Cavaliers, or Guardians. Go to a dealership and ask for some free passes. A lot of the local dealerships have them. Go hit them up. And save yourself $15 at the gate. Parking is free. You can park right up front. Depending maybe on the weekend, you might have to do parking in the back, but up front had good spots last night on the east side of the building. But it was definitely a good time. So if you want to go meet David Njoku and DeJuan Jones tomorrow night, 6:30 to 8 at the IX Center.
Beautiful. Yeah, I did see that. That's kind of slick. If I wasn't going to be working all damn night, I would go.
And I will tell you, anybody that's going to go up there, it was the same time last night for Albert Bell and Baerga. I got up there about 5 o'clock and got in line, and I didn't get to the table till about 7:30. So, with the Browns and the popularity of the team, if you're going to get in line, there are people that will take soft chairs and sit there all day long. So, if you want that opportunity to meet the guys and get an autograph, make sure you get there early. And I mean, really.
Like 3. Beautiful. I got nothing else. Just say my normal. Be nice to each other out there, y'all. You don't know what somebody else is going through.
That's right.
So be kind to one another, and definitely follow everything that Believeland Media does. HCC, all things Cavalier, back in the saddle with Joey and Kevin Sled's boss man. All the high school coverage, I can't even keep up with it. We're wall to wall. We're covering everything, it seems like, in high school. So if you're looking for high school coverage, we are your top source. Obviously, we'll be with you. We're going to record on Tuesdays. We're going to try and go live. Yesterday, this man was out getting autographs. Good for him. So that's why we postponed until today. But we'll be Tuesdays every 2 weeks. And until we get closer to the season, obviously we'll do draft shows. Now that we got Joey Schneider back in the fold, he is our one of our big draft guys. And especially with where we're at right now, again, not having a first round pick, it's hard to kind of even predict what the Browns are going to do. But we will definitely dive into the drafts once we get closer, and as free agency as well. But that's all I got, man.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up to keep following everything Believeland Media. I do want to shout out Marshawn Powers, who is out there every time I go on social media. He's covering a game somewhere, so don't be surprised if somebody was just, with this warm weather coming up, if you're out shooting in your driveway, you might see Marshawn right behind you with a mic ready for you. That's how much this guy is covering. So shout out to Marshawn Powers with all his coverage. And, keep it up, man. Doing a great job. College coverage, too. Kent State with Derek. I know MAC tournament play starting. We have the women's Final Four coming to Cleveland. So we're hoping to get to cover as well. So just stay tuned and continue to start following our live shows. And we really enjoy doing this. We do it for the love of the game, the love of the conversation, and for the love of you fans out there that we get to interact with. It's a great opportunity. So thank everybody for watching us and checking us out. And please continue to share what we're doing on social media, as it does help us out as we continue to look for more and more sponsorship for Believeland Media.
That's right. We got big things coming, man. Big things. Make sure you keep following. Well, on that note, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. In the word, he is the greatest quarterback to ever come out of the University of Alabama. Freddie Kitchens.
No.
If you don't wear brown and this orange right here, you don't matter. Peace, y'all. Go Browns.
See you, everybody. Go Browns. Woo!